Jake was not the kind of person who listened to warnings. He was an explorer, young and full of curiosity. When he joined the mission to planet Zirion, he didn't care about the rules. He wanted to find something new, something powerful, and on the third day of their search, he did. The team found an old alien temple, half buried in black stone and dust. It looked dead from the outside, but inside, something was still alive. The walls glowed with a soft blue light and strange symbols. Covered the floor, everyone walked carefully, but not Jake. He was the first to step in, smiling like a child finding treasure. One of the team members, a woman named Lyra, stood back and watched. She looked nervous, always quiet, always watching the shadows. Jake didn't notice her fear. He was too excited in the center of the temple. He saw Aton armor, floating. In the air, it looked like it was made of dark silver, glowing slightly with green lines. It had no wires, no machines holding it. Just floating there like magic, Jake took a step closer, his eyes wide. "What is this?" He whispered Lyra suddenly. Shouted, "Don't touch it." Her voice was sharp, full of fear. Jake stopped and turned to her, confused. "Why?" "It's just armor," he said. "It's not for humans," Lyra said, walking slowly towards him. "It's old, very old and dangerous." Jake laughed. "Looks fine to me," before anyone could stop him. Jake reached out and touched the armor. The second his fingers made contact, the air changed. The ground shook slightly, and a low hum filled the room. The armor moved. Fast like a snake, it wrapped around Jake's hand, then his arm, his chest, his legs, in seconds. It covered his whole body, piece by piece. Jake screamed. Not in pain, but in shock. He tried to pull it off, but it wouldn't move. The armor locked into his skin like it was alive. The rest of the team stepped back in fear. Lyra ran forward, trying to help. But the armor pushed her away with a shock of energy. Jake stood in the middle of the room, shaking, then slowly. The lights in the temple grew brighter. Symbols on the walls began to glow red instead of blue. Something had changed. Something had started. Jake looked at Lyra, his voice weak. "What's happening to me?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes were wide, her face pale. Finally, she spoke, her voice low. "It's begun." Then she looked around at the temple walls and whispered, "We need to run." The team didn't wait. Strange machines, hidden in the temple walls, began to move. Long metal arms unfolded from the ceiling. Scanning the room, Jake tried to walk, but the armor was heavy, like it was learning how to use his body. He felt something moving inside his head like whispers, but not in English. Alien thoughts, soft but deep. Pressing into his mind, Lyra grabbed his arm, helping him walk. "We have to leave now," she said, "before the temple closes." "Why didn't you tell me?" Jake asked, "What is this thing?" "I tried," Lyra said, her voice full of regret. "I told you not to touch it. It chose you, Jake. Now it's too late." Outside the temple, the sky was turning dark. Strange lights floated in. The clouds, as if the planet itself had woken up. The team ran to the ship, but not all of them made it. One man stayed behind to close the gates. And the temple swallowed him whole. Jake sat in the ship, shaking, feeling the armor breathing on his skin. It was cold, then hot, then cold again. Like it was testing him. Lyra sat beside him, quiet. Jake looked at her, eyes full of questions. She didn't look at him. She stared at the sky and whispered again, "It's begun." Jake didn't know what had started, but he knew one thing for sure. His life would never be the same again. The ship flew quietly above the red hills of planet Zirion. But inside, everything was tense. No one spoke, no one moved. All eyes were on Jake. He sat in the center of the ship, wrapped in the alien armor. It looked like silver metal, but it moved like skin. It was no longer just covering him. It was a part of him. The armor had stopped glowing, but everyone knew it wasn't sleeping. It was waiting. Jake looked down at his hands, now metal and smooth. He could still move his fingers, but they didn't feel like his own. His voice trembled. "It's not." Coming off, Lyra sat across from him, her eyes never blinking. "I told you it wouldn't," she said softly. Jake stared at her. "What is this thing? Why does it feel like it's breathing?" Before Lyra could answer, the The ship's lights flickered. Then, everyone heard it, a whisper, soft and cold. It didn't come from the speakers. It came from inside their heads, a strange alien voice speaking in a language no one knew. Jake held his head in pain. "Make it stop," he shouted, but the voice kept going. Like a dream you couldn't wake from. Suddenly, the ship's systems glitched. Lights blinked, screens turned black. The armor on Jake's chest lit up with green energy, and the ship calmed down. Systems rebooted. The lights returned. Everyone stared in silence. Jake had somehow connected to the ship without touching anything. Lyra stood up slowly. "It's starting the bond," she said. "What bond?" Jake asked, his voice shaking. Lyra looked around at the others, then back at Jake. "The armor doesn't just wear you," she said. "It becomes you. You touched it. Now it's learning everything about your body, your mind, soul. If it completes the bond, it won't come off. Not ever." Jake felt his heartbeat rise. "But I don't want it," he said. "I didn't ask for this. The armor doesn't ask," Lyra replied. "It chooses." One of the crew members, Tom, stepped forward. "We should try to cut it off," he said, pulling out a tool. Jake stood up quickly. "Don't," he said, but it was too late. Tom touched the armor with the blade and it reacted. A spark flew out and Tom was thrown back across the room. He hit the wall hard, groaning in pain. The armor lit up again. Brighter this time, as if warning them. Jake's hand started to shake, not in fear, but in anger. His voice changed slightly, deeper, colder. "Don't touch me," he said, and everyone stepped back. Lyra stepped forward. "Slowly, carefully, Jake," she said. "You need to breathe. Stay calm." Jake closed his eyes, and the armor dimmed again. But his skin was hot, and his head ached. He could feel something inside him. Something not human. It was like a second heart, beating in a different rhythm later that night. Jake sat alone in the medical room. He stared into a mirror, looking. At his metal face, his eyes were still his butt. There was something new behind them. Something watching. Something growing. Lyra entered quietly and sat beside him. "You want the truth?" she asked. Jake nodded. "I think I need it now." Lyra took a deep breath. "That armor was created by an ancient alien race thousands of years ago," she said. "They built it for war. For survival, for destruction. It was never meant to be worn by humans. But the armor doesn't care," she continued. "It only looks for one thing, compatibility, and it chose you. Why me?" Jake asked. "I'm just a guy from Earth." "You were curious, brave, and a little reckless," Lyra replied. "Exactly like the last one." Jake frowned. "Last one?" "Yes," she said. "The last person who wore that armor started a war that burned half this galaxy." The room went quiet. Jake's mind raced. "So now I'm what?" He asked. "A weapon," Lyra said. "Not yet. But if the bond completes, you'll have powers you can't imagine. And if you lose control, I'll become something else. Something terrible." Jake stood up, his armor shifting with his movement like it was alive. He walked to the window and looked at the stars. "I didn't ask for this," he whispered. "No one ever does," Lyra replied, in the shadows of the ship. The armor pulsed softly, like it was breathing, like it was dreaming, waiting for the day it would fully awaken. The ship flew through the silent sky of Zirian, but Jake was not silent anymore. He was hearing things again, voices, not his own, whispering deep inside his head. The words weren't English, but somehow he understood them, orders, memories, warnings all mixed together like a broken signal. The armor was talking to him. Each hour, the bond grew stronger. The armor no longer felt like clothing. It felt like skin. Sometimes it even moved before he did, like it already knew what he was about to do. Jake stood near the engine room, staring at his reflection in the metal wall. His eyes glowed faint. Green, his fingers looked sharper, almost like claws. He didn't feel pain anymore. He didn't feel tired. He felt different. Lyra watched him from a distance. She saw how he moved now faster, colder, less human. The others stayed away, whispering behind closed doors. Some wanted to leave him on the planet. Some wanted to try and kill him before the armor took full control, but Lyra stayed close. She had seen this before, long ago. She had seen what this armor could do. She had seen what it could become. On the fourth night it happened, Jake woke up gasping. Sweating, but the armor was dry and cold. He heard a voice, loud this time. Not a whisper, command acknowledged. It said, then the ship's lights went red. Alarms blared. Systems shut down. The whole ship froze in the air. The crew ran to the control room. But nothing worked. No response, Tom shouted. We've lost navigation. It's him, someone said. It's the armor. Jake walked in slowly, and as he entered, the screens turned back on. Green symbols filled the display lane. Code flowing like a river. The ship was no longer flying on human control. It was following the armor's command. Lyra stared at the screen. It's activated something, she said. Jake nodded slowly. I don't know how, but I think I just unlocked a memory. The armor spoke again, this time through the speakers. Navigation locked coordinates, confirm Zarian core facility, opening access. Jake turned to the others. It wants to go somewhere. Tom shouted, we should throw him off the ship. He's becoming one of them. No, Lyra said firmly. He's the key now. We need to follow this, or we'll never understand what we're dealing with no other choice. They followed the coordinates. The ship moved on its own, fast, silent, focused. They flew over a dead forest of metal trees, through a sky filled with floating stones. Finally, they reached a giant mountain that pulsed with green light. At its center, an opening began to form, as if the mountain itself was alive. The ship entered slowly, lights flickering as it went deeper underground. Then it stopped, gently, as if placed by invisible hands. The door opened and cold air rushed in. They stepped outside and saw something they could never forget, a massive underground facility. Covered in alien machines and glowing lines, it looked untouched for thousands of years in the center. A huge black sphere floated above a platform the moment Jake stepped onto the ground. The sphere opened like it had been waiting for him. Lyra whispered, "This is it, the core facility," Jake said, his voice deeper now. "This is where the armor was born." As he walked toward the sphere, memories hit him like thunder. He saw battles not from Earth, but from space. He saw planets burning, alien soldiers marching, entire worlds falling. Yet in the center of it, all himself, or someone who looked like him, wearing the same armor, leading the army. Speaking the same words the voices whispered now, he fell to his knees, breathing hard. It wasn't just armor, he said. It was a command unit, a weapon made to control entire wars. Lyra stepped beside him. "You're seeing? It's past, but if you're not careful, its past will become your future." The ground shook suddenly, and machines around the room powered up. Something had awoken, something old and angry. The sphere spoke in a deep alien voice, echoing through the cave. New commander verified, activating defense protocol. From the dark corners of the chamber, metal guardians rose tall, sharp, glowing red. They aimed their weapons at the crew. Jake stood tall, his armor glowing bright. "No," he said calmly, "stand down." The machine stopped, frozen. Then slowly they knelt. Everyone stared, silent. Jake had control now, but at what cost?
House.
His voice was different. His eyes weren't just green, they were ancient. Like someone else was watching through them. Lyra stepped closer, scared but calm. "You're not Jake anymore, are you?" Jake looked at her hand, didn't answer. The underground facility was not silent anymore. Breathed, it moved, it remembered. Jake stood at the center of it all. Glowing in the dark like a torch lit by the past, the alien armor shimmered across, his body pulsing with each heartbeat. But whose heartbeat was it now, his or the armor's? Lyra and the rest of the crew followed him carefully. The machines had obeyed Jake's voice, but no one truly felt safe. Each wall they passed held carving stories written in alien symbols, pictures of wars, of dying stars, of metal giants, standing over broken worlds, and in every carving, one figure remained at the center, wearing Jake's armor. It wasn't a suit, it was a throne. They reached a giant hall, circular and cold. In the middle stood a tall pillar made of black stone. As Jake stepped near it, the pillar lit up, and a voice echoed all around them. It was calm, deep, and not human. "Identity recognized. It said, "Welcome, Commander. You are late." The lights turned blue, and a hologram flickered above the pillar. It showed a face not of a person, but of an alien machine. Its eyes were glowing white, and its voice came from every wall at once. "I am the witness," it said, "guardian of memory." Lyra's eyes narrowed. She had heard legends about this. The witness was a ghost AI that had watched the fall of the old war. She never thought it was real. Now, it was looking at Jake like an old friend had returned. Jake stepped forward slowly. "What?" "AM1. The witness tilted its head. "You are the chosen vessel," it replied. "The armor holds the mind of General Serix. Last commander of the Zirian War, he died, but the armor kept his code, his thoughts, his will. You touched it, and it found you suitable." Jake shook his head. "I'm not him, not a general." "You are now," the witness said. "His mind is merging with yours. Piece by piece, you will remember more soon." Lyra grabbed Jake's arm. "We need to leave now." But Jake was still frozen, inside his head. More memories unlocked. Flashes of battles, of screams, of stars dying. He felt anger, pride, and power, but they weren't his feelings. They were Serix's. "I can feel him," Jake whispered. "He's inside me, and the worst part is, he doesn't want to destroy, not yet. He wants to finish what he started." The witness nodded. "The war was never over. Your enemies are sleeping in the dark corners of space. You must prepare to awaken the fleet." Lyra stepped forward, eyes sharp. "No," she said. "That war ended centuries ago. Let it stay dead." But the witness didn't answer her. It only looked at Jake and said, "You were built for this." Tom, one of the crew members, whispered behind her, "We should kill him before he becomes something else." But Jake turned his head slowly. His eyes locked on Tom. The armor around Jake's shoulders shifted just slightly like. It heard the threat too. Tom stepped back in fear. Jake looked down, took a deep breath. "I'm still me," he said quietly. "I have to believe that." But belief was hard when the ship's systems now obeyed him, when the machines in the chamber bowed as he walked past, when even the witness, this ancient voice of the past, called him commander. Suddenly, the room grew dark again. The hologram of the witness flickered, then twisted. The AI scream static filled the air, then the lights returned. Red this time. "They are coming." The witness said, now broken and glitching. "The enemy has heard the armor's signal." Jake stepped back, heart racing. "What enemy?" "The ones we failed to destroy," the witness said, its voice fading. "They want the armor. Or your death." The ground shook, dust falling from the ceiling. A deep rumble echoed from above. Something was approaching the facility. Something big. Jake looked at Lyra. "We have to go." She nodded. But her face showed something else's fear. Mixed with doubt, was she following Jake? Or something darker that now lived inside him? As they ran back to the ship, machines behind them powered down. The lights faded, the chamber closed, and deep underground. The witness whispered one last thing before going silent. The war never ended. It just slept. And now it wakes. Jake stood at the ship's entrance, watching the shadows grow in the sky. And for the first time, he asked himself a question he wasn't ready to answer. Am I still human? The ship was silent as it flew over the desert of Zirian. But inside, the silence was heavy, not peaceful but sharp, cold, and full of tension. Nobody trusted each other anymore. Not after what they had seen in the core facility. Not after what Jake had become. Jake stood near the window, watching the twin moons rise. His reflection stared back at him, half human, half alien metal. The armor no longer looked like a suit. It had grown roots, spreading like veins across his skin. It didn't cover him. It fed from him. Lyra sat at the table with the others. They were whispering, but their eyes kept looking at Jake. Tom, the engineer, slammed a small tool on the table. "I'm telling you," he said, "he's not Jake. Anymore, he's a weapon, and it's only a matter of time before he turns on us." "He saved us," Lyra replied, trying to stay calm. "He stopped the machines. He stopped the drones." Tom leaned forward, eyes burning. "No, the armor did," he said. And we have no idea who's driving now? Lyra wanted to defend Jake, but even she couldn't ignore what was happening. He was changing, and not. Just on the outside, sometimes he would speak in that alien voice. Sometimes he would forget where he was, and sometimes he would smile like someone else was behind his eyes. That night, the betrayal began. Jake lay asleep, or something like sleep in the cargo hold. The armor covered his chest and head, pulsing slowly. Tom crept in with a weapon in his hand. It was a shock blade, built to cut through metal. He raised it above Jake's heart and whispered, "I'm sorry," but before the blade could strike, Jake's hand shot up and caught Tom's wrist. His eyes snapped open, green and glowing. The armor around his arms came alive, wrapping around Tom like a snake. Jake stood, lifting Tom off the ground with one hand. "You tried to kill me," he said, his voice deep and hollow. Tom gasped for air. "You're not Jake anymore. You're something else." The others rushed in, and Lyra shouted, "Let him go." Jake looked around, saw their fear, their shaking hands. He dropped Tom to the ground, the armor sliding back into place. "I didn't ask for this," he said quietly, "but if you come at me again, I won't hold back." Tom was dragged out, injured, but alive. The rest of the crew stood frozen, unsure what to believe. Was Jake still one of them, or was he now the enemy? Later, Lyra found Jake sitting alone in the dark. She sat beside him. Without speaking, after a while, he said, "I felt it." The armor took over for a second. "I could have killed him without thinking." Lyra looked at him, her voice gentle. "But you didn't. You pulled back, Jake. That means something." He shook his head. "I'm not sure how long I can fight it." "It's not just armor," he said. "It's Syrinx, the war general. He's still inside." Pushing, whispering, tempting, Lyra took a deep breath. "It's time you knew the truth." Jake turned to her slowly. "What truth?" he asked. She looked down, then back at him, her voice soft and tired. "I was part of a secret project," she said. "My people found the armor years ago. We studied it, guarded it. We knew it could wake again. We just didn't know." When Jake stared, his face unreadable. "So you brought me here, on purpose?" "No," she said quickly. "Not you, not exactly. We were scanning for anyone the armor might respond to when your name came up on the list." "I didn't stop it." Jake stood, the armor shifting again. "You used me," he said, voice rising. "You knew what might happen, and you said nothing." Lyra stood too, eyes wet. "I believed you were strong enough to resist it. I thought if anyone could stop Syrinx from returning it was you." He turned away, fists clenched outside. The wind howled across the sand, inside the storm. It was worse. Suddenly the ship rocked, alarms flashing red. An enemy signal appeared on the radar, sharp, fast, and coming right for them. The enemy the witness warned about. They had found him. Jake looked at Lyra, anger and fear mixing in his eyes. "This is what you wanted." "No," she said. "This is what I feared," as the ship prepared for battle. Jake walked to the weapons room. He didn't need guns. He was the weapon now. The armor pulsed with light, ready to fight, ready to kill. But deep inside, Jake still whispered one word to himself: resist. And the armor whispered back, why? Asterisk, the enemy ship came fast like a falling star. Red light streaked across the black sky of Zirian. The crew had seconds to prepare, but Jake didn't need time. The armor had already prepared for him. His body moved before he could think. The suit tightened, glowed, reshaped his arms into blades of light. He could feel his heartbeat slow down. He was calm, but it wasn't human calm. It was something else, something ancient. He felt like a god made of war. Tom manned the turrets. Lyra worked on defense shields, but their eyes kept glancing at Jake. He stood in front of the ships. Main door, silent, glowing, waiting. Then it happened. The enemy ship cracked open like a shell, and out came 3 machine stall. Sharp, silver and red, they looked like walking knives. With burning eyes and no voices, they didn't speak, they just hunted. They came for one thing, the armor. Jake ran forward before anyone could react. His footsteps cracked the floor. He jumped high into the air, landing on the first machine. His armor created a blade from his arm, and he drove it deep into the enemy's chest. No hesitation, no fear, just precision. He was fast. Too fast for the others to even watch clearly. One machine grabbed him from behind. He spun, broke its arms and smashed it into the ground. The third fired energy at him, but the armor absorbed it, then returned it with triple force. The battle was over in under a minute, but the victory felt wrong. Jake stood over the broken enemies, breathing slow, not tired, not even sweating. The armor whispered, "You were made for this." And for the first time, Jake didn't argue. Back on the ship, Lyra waited for him. When he entered, the others stepped back. Even Tom said nothing. Jake's armor was now covering part of his neck, and one eye glowed even when he closed it. He was no longer wearing the armor. He was the armor. Lyra followed him to the storage bay, where the ship kept emergency tools. She opened a secret panel, revealing a metal box with strange markings. "This is the kill switch," she said. Jake looked at her, confused. "It's a device buried deep under Zirian," she continued, "the last hope. Built by the aliens who created the armor. If activated, it can end the bond, destroy the armor, but it may kill you." Jake stepped back. "Why would you show me this now?" he asked. "Because," she whispered, "you're slipping away." Jake clenched his fists. "I saved us all," he said. "I ended the fight in seconds." "Yes," Lyra said. "But not as Jake, as Syrinx." Those words hit him like a stone. He looked at his reflection in the glass panel. Face staring back wasn't his. Not fully, too smooth, too silver, too perfect. He touched his face and whispered, "Who am I now?" Lyra stepped closer, her voice softer. "You still have time to choose. You can fight it." Jake turned away. "What if I don't want to fight it? What if I like the power?" Lyra's eyes watered. "Then the man I believed in is already gone." The next morning, Jake left the ship alone. He followed the coordinates Lyra gave him, deep into the mountains of Zirian, through tunnels of green crystal and frozen wind until he found it, the kill switch. It stood in a round room, lit by a single beam of light. It looked simpler, panel with one slot, one button, but he could feel the energy inside it. Sleeping, waiting, the armor hissed, pulled back slightly from his hand. He didn't want to go near the device. It feared it. That's how he knew it was real. He stood there for a long time, staring at the button. One press, and it would all end. The power, the voices, the war within him. But maybe also his life. The armor spoke in his mind, louder now. "You can end all wars. You can lead again. You are not weak. You are chosen." He closed his eyes, and for the first time, remembered Earth. His old life, the blue sky, his mother's smile, the sound of rain on a window. Things the armor couldn't understand, things that made him human. He opened his eyes and raised his hand. The armor screamed inside him, trying to pull back, but he fought it. With everything he had left, he pressed the button. The world shook. A white light burst from the panel, covering his body. The armor howled, cracked, fell apart in pieces. His body dropped to the floor, shaking, gasping, then silence. Lyra arrived minutes later, running, shouting his name. She found him on the floor, barely breathing, no armor, no glow, just Jake, alive but broken. She held him, whispering, "You made the choice." He opened one eye and whispered, "Tell me I'm still me." Lyra smiled, tears in her eyes. "You are." But as she helped him up, something deep inside Jake pulsed. A tiny spark, just one. A whisper, not gone, just waiting. Days passed since the armor fell. Jake lay in the medical bay, weak but alive. His body had survived the shock, but the scars it left weren't just on the skin. They were deeper, inside his mind, inside his soul. The ship floated quietly above Zirian, its engines off, its crew silent. The planet was calm now, as if it too had been holding its breath. Lyra sat beside Jake every day, watching him heal. She brought water, food, silence, and sometimes stories. Old stories from Earth, about peace, about second chances, about hope. Jake didn't say much at first. His voice was weak, and his mind still wandered. But slowly, his eyes became clear again. He started asking questions, small ones. Where are we? Is everyone okay? And then finally, is it really gone? Lyra always gave the same answer. You pressed the button, she said. You broke the bond. It's over now. But Jake didn't believe it, not fully, because at night, when everyone else slept, he heard whispers again, soft, distant, like echoes in a deep cave, not angry, not loud, just waiting, like something buried under ice, still breathing. Tom avoided Jake now. He did his job, kept his distance, and never looked him in the eye. The others were the same, polite but unsure. They had seen what Jake became, and though the armor was gone, their fear wasn't. Jake understood. He didn't blame them. He barely trusted himself. But Lyra never looked away one morning. She brought him a small mirror. Go ahead, she said gently. Look. Jake hesitated, then held it up. What he saw was a man. Tired, pale, but human. No metal skin, no glowing eyes, no whispers. Just Jake, or so it seemed. Later that day, the crew voted to return to Earth. Zirian would be marked as off-limits, buried in silence again. Too dangerous, too alien, too full of things humans were not ready for. Jake said nothing. He simply nodded. He had no desire to stay. The flight back took weeks. The stars looked the same, but Jake didn't. He spoke less, smiled less. He spent most of his time staring out the window, as if searching for something he had left behind, or something that might still be following. When Earth finally appeared in the distance, blue, bright, and alive, Jake felt his chest tighten. It was beautiful, more beautiful than he remembered. They landed quietly. No press, no celebration. Their report was marked. As classified, Zirian's files were sealed, and the armor's name was erased from every database. The world would never know what almost returned. Jake was offered a quiet life, a remote home in the woods, far from noise, far from people. He accepted it without a word. It felt right. He needed quiet now. Lyra visited him one last time before leaving. She brought books, tea, and a box of old Earth music. They sat on the porch in silence, birds chirping, wind soft. Jake finally turned to her and asked, "Did we win?" Lyra thought for a long time, then said, "We stopped it. For now, that's enough." She hugged him gently, and then she was gone. Back to the stars, back to the watch, back to the next warning. Jake stayed behind, breathing fresh air. Listening to rivers, he planted trees, read old books, smiled at animals who didn't care about armor or war. Life was simple again, until one night, weeks later, he stood under the stars, barefoot on the grass. The moon was full, the air cold. He closed his eyes and heard it again, a whisper, faint, almost a memory, but not quite. Not gone, you chose. Humanity, it said. But I am patient. Jake opened his eyes, and for a second, just one. His reflection in the window didn't blink. It smiled, but he didn't. He stepped back, heart pounding. The mirror was normal again, his face unchanged. But the silence was heavier than before. Not empty, just watching. He went inside, turned off the lights, and whispered to the dark. I'm still me, and far beneath the earth, buried deep where no one could find it. A small shard of silver pulsed, once softly, waiting.